Welcome to the Sports Porch Pittsburgh.
Welcome.
I just scared the hell out of my wife. She's sitting here trying to work. I am your technical director, Chris. That guy over there is the Grand Schwabini, Marc, who has like 3 names for himself. And there's Hockey Jesus. There's Hockey Jesus down there. So I want to thank everybody. You'll notice we aren't in our studio tonight. I'm on a little vacation. Steve is utilizing his wife's office, and Marc is in front of some weird Andy Warhol painting. I don't know. What is that, Schwab? There
He's
you go.
bleeding into the background.
Marc. Yes, and I believe in magic.
You sure do.
So I want to thank you for listening to the Sports Porch on the iHeartRadio app, or Apple Podcasts, or Spotify, or anywhere you get your podcasts. And of course, you can catch the Sports Porch on American Busker iHeartRadio every Sunday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. And hit us up online on our webpage at theporcheslive.com, theporcheslive.com.
Theporcheslive.com.
There you go. Schwaber's on it. He's on it right now. So, listen, we got a lot to talk about.
There's so much to talk about.
Yeah. The first thing that I want to do, though, okay, because we made this promise, and I say this every single time, is I want to tell everybody that TD, your technical director, does your Buccos report after every Buccos game on the podcast. And I have done it faithfully since I said I would, because Steve set, as we like to say in Pittsburgh, Steve set the standard, and the standard is the standard. Yeah, you got it, a Tomlinism. But I got to tell you, I'm excited about this team. I've had a lot of fun doing it. I want so badly to commit to all 162 games, but that's basically 2 hockey seasons. And what Hockey Jesus did was incredibly impressive. That even if I did commit to it, and let's say I got 84 games straight in, if I stopped, he would still be the king because he got every game. So it's like a lose-lose for me, So I'm going to keep doing it.
Like everything else in your life. Mm-hmm. A lose-lose for you.
Yes, I see you. You tuned up for this one, Schwaber. You definitely tuned up for this one. So, but listen, let's get to this. Steve always rolls his eyes when we talk about the Pirates. They're 20-9 right now. They have the night off. They have some big games coming up. I'll give you my take on it when we come back to this. So we wanted to tease you with that. We're definitely going to have a Pirates report this game. They deserve it. But let's get to the bigger question in hand, which is the draft, the Steelers, and did they draft well? Did they fill their needs? If you watch the Sports Porch or you listen to any of our podcasts, I think the answer to that is yes, at least from my perspective. I believe that they did a great job in the draft. I would rank them I would give them an A. We were talking on the earlier show on the Philadelphia Sports Porch. I think the Eagles crushed this draft. But I would definitely give the Steelers an A for their needs. What do you think, Steve? And then we'll bring the Eagles guy in, because we're going to use a catchphrase there.
Well, I mean, it doesn't really matter what I think, although I do agree. I think they did well. I love the fact that they moved up. I didn't think they would do it. But moving up, I think, just kind of set the tone for what it is they wanted to do, And when they moved up to get Broderick Jones, and they had to give up a 4th round pick to do it, I was like, they're all in on this. They really need this guy, and they went and got the guy. Now remember, Gonzalez was there too, and they also needed a cornerback. So they actually did have a decision to make. It wasn't like a no-brainer. They actually did have to make a decision still. And yeah, getting Broderick Jones is a total steal at that point. They moved up to get him, awesome. And then they wait. They probably could have dropped down to get a lesser cornerback. And you know how you feel about Joey Porter Jr. I think he's going to be a good talent, but I don't like the whole, well, he was a Steelers and a feel-good story. A lot of people will. I get it. I kind of felt that way about Kutch too, and I was wrong, honestly. But so the feel-good stuff does kind of matter to borderline fans. And let's face it,
right?
Guys like me, they're not out to impress me. They want to get other people who are like, oh, didn't Joey Porter used to play for them? Yeah, he used to play for them. Oh, they got his son. That's so cute. They're getting that type of people involved. And there's nothing wrong with that, I guess. But in this case, there isn't, because he's actually pretty good talent. So, and he dropped, so they didn't overpay for him. They actually underpaid for him, which I'm good with. I'm good with that pick. Then they went out and they got a defensive lineman, Benson. I think that just shores up the defense. That's not, it's not a really it's not a great pick, but it was somebody they need. And then that tight end, Darnell Washington from Georgia. Dude, the more I think about this pick, I think this is the pick of the draft, honestly. I mean, Broderick Jones probably will be for the long term, but if you think about this guy and the difference maker he could be on the field, I mean, he's like a Gronk type receiver. I know he doesn't have his speed. I know he doesn't have his hands, but his size is going to be a total mismatch for any linebacker. And I don't know how people are going to cover him in the end zone. The problem is we still have Canada. So can Canada take advantage of a freak like this guy in the offense? And I hope they don't run him on a jet sweep. That would not be good. But
it's already in the playbook.
I know it is. But the more I think about that Darnell Washington, I thought, that's kind of a luxury pick to do that. But the more I looked at him and the more I listened to people talk about him, his size and his talent is really unique. So I like that about that pick. And then, they got Ham and Eggers after that. They got Herbig. They did need to get a linebacker, but he's maybe not a linebacker. He could be an edge rusher. And they got another guy. People seemed excited about this Corey Trice Jr. I don't know anything about him, but hey, another cornerback can't be a bad thing. If you got to cut Witherspoon and save that $4 million on the salary dump, because they're going to have like 4 or 5 cornerbacks now on the roster. They're not going to keep them all, so he could be a casualty to cut. And then they got this Spencer Anderson, once again, another 7th rounder. He may or may not make the team. So I love their draft, especially the first 4 picks. I think setting the tone with that Broderick Jones picks just was really smart. And look, everybody's saying Omar Khan, he's the greatest. Don't forget, Tomlin picks the picks. It's about Tomlin. And Tomlin listened to Khan. So I think there's good things going on between the GM. And I like that about this draft. I think they were listening to each other. And I don't think that was necessarily happening a lot with the last GM. So good for the Steelers. I don't give them this, but I was looking on some websites. Somebody gave the Steelers an A+. And the other, just briefly, I'm not going to go over all their picks. Cleveland got an A-, but remember, their first pick was 74. So getting an A- when your first pick is 74 is more like getting a D, in my opinion. Baltimore got a C+. I like the Zay Flowers pick, but he did play in Boston College. So is he an elite wide receiver? Probably not.
Yeah, I saw that. I thought the same thing.
Really like that Simpson pick from Clemson, but they didn't need a freaking linebacker. They needed a cornerback, and the Steelers got all the cornerbacks. Didn't understand that. And Cincinnati. So Cincinnati takes their number 1 pick and gets an edge rusher. I promise you, Broderick Jones will own this bitch for his career. You can play this back 5 years from now. There is no way that Miles Murphy is going to do shit against Broderick Jones. Write it down now, 100% guarantee.
Okay.
they went out and got a cornerback. The one thing Cincinnati did, which I think is hilarious, Cincinnati went and got a punter. So that's all you need to know about Cincinnati.
Yeah, they did. Yeah. So, what do you think, Schwaber? How do you see this? And give it to us from the perspective of the cliche that we've used for the last few months, the Weidl effect. Do you see the Weidl effect here?
I do.
Yeah.
But I also think that. See, I agree with Steve. I think Tomlin ultimately makes the pick, but he's listening to Kahn and Weidl. The one pick that I think he didn't listen to Kahn and Weidl is the Joey Porter Jr. pick.
Yeah.
And that was the pick that, to be honest, I'm just more disappointed in that pick. Nothing to do with the player, but just that the pick was made.
Yeah.
But maybe he'll be a good player. So, I mean, I really like the Steelers draft. Believe it or not, I liked, the best pick was the number 1 pick, Broderick Jones, Georgia Bulldog. He's a beast. And they needed a beast on the offensive line. Porter Jr., I think he's one of those, we'll have to wait and see. He could turn out to be anything. I mean, he could turn out to be a really good, solid corner, or he could turn out to be a bust, if he really is handsy and going to get a lot of flags, right? So I think he's kind of, I wasn't thrilled with that pick. What I thought was the thing to do with that pick being that it was the first pick in the second round was, especially obviously the Tennessee Titans wanted to move up to get Will Levis. Mm-hmm. You could have probably gotten 3 picks, and maybe even like a 2 next year or something like that. So I would have traded that pick. You might have been able to trade that pick and get Joey Porter a couple picks back. So anyway, I wasn't crazy about that pick. The Keanu Benton pick, I wasn't really too crazy about that pick either. Again, though, he's like, an interior D lineman. Sometimes for those guys, if they have 4.5 sacks, which is what he had, that's actually pretty good. But I just don't really know anything about him. I never.
Well, they said that he's a run stopper essentially. Like he's not.
Yeah, he's 300 pounds. He's a big.
He's just there to take up
the middle.
space. I think he's going to be. I mean, at his best, he probably could be like a Keith Hampton. A guy who you don't hear about very much, but he allows the linebackers to make the plays because he's sucking up 1 or 2 offensive linemen. I think that's on him. I think actually you make a really good point about Joey Porter Jr. You're probably right. He probably didn't. Tomlin didn't listen to him. He said, "No, I'm taking him no matter what." I bet you're right about that. Mm-hmm. And you're probably right. Like Kaylee Ringo went. When did the Eagles get Ringo?
He was like the 3rd pick in the 4th round.
Like, to me, I really like Ringo. I think that's a great pick by the Eagles. And the other thing that I think I like what the Eagles did is, just trading for like real players,
Right.
Like I thought I always think that's good. I think you can get steals on draft day, and the Steelers really haven't done it since, they went out and got Bettis way back in the day. But it's just not what they do. Maybe next year, maybe Tomlin will listen a little bit more if Joey Porter Jr. doesn't turn out to be a starter this year. The reality is he doesn't really have to start this year, but you really hope that, he shows up so well at training camp that they have to play him, in the starting role against Patrick Peterson. So
I'll tell you what, though, my 2 favorite picks. I mean, obviously Broderick Jones is the main pick that I really like, but my 2 favorite picks were the next 2. Darnell Washington, Daniel Jeremiah had him as the 33rd ranked player on his board. You get him at 93. Yeah. That's an unbelievable value pick there. He's a Georgia Bulldog. And, the reality here is, this guy actually, he can actually catch the ball and make some moves. Now, the tight ends don't really need to catch the ball when you're playing down in Georgia, right? Right. They always have these great wide receivers. But I'm telling you, he can catch the ball and he can make some plays. Now, Freiermuth, I'm sure, will remain the main option as far as a pass catching tight end. But this guy's going to give you way more than Gentry could give you, you know.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And the other part of it, I think, is just a little bit not necessarily realized, is that, you know, this guy's an extra offensive lineman, and he is a big time blocker. And they actually at times had Broderick Jones and Darnell Washington side by side blocking. And I think that's huge. I think that's a huge factor. And I'll tell you what, man, I have a feeling about Nick Herbig. I have a feeling about him. Now, you know, his brother was he was a former Eagle. Is he? Wait, is he also on the Steelers?
Yes,
they picked him up, didn't they? Oh my God! But,
yes, they did. Yeah. Thanks for bringing that up. Thanks for bringing that up, Mark.
No, but in all seriousness, though, seriously, listen to these stats, man. In the last 2 years in college football, at a outside linebacker position, 20 sacks, 30 tackles for a loss, 4 forced fumbles. I mean, he's a playmaker.
No, he is. And that's what I like about him. You know, you can bring him in on third down. Maybe he gets to the quarterback. Maybe he causes a fumble. I think I like the pick too. And, you know, they got him in the 4th round. So once again, you know, you can stash him this year, get him to learn, maybe put him in there for some splash plays. Maybe Mark Robinson isn't going to be the guy. Maybe it'll be him instead. Whatever, you know, it gives them options on defense.
Right. And I also did like the Corey Trice pick too. He plays for Purdue, and I watch a lot of Big Ten games. I've seen him play, and he's good. You know, he had 2 pick sixes last year. You know, he's 6'3", 206.
Yeah.
They also talk about, you know, maybe he could move to safety as well. So I think that's a really good pick late. So
yeah, well, the reason he went late was because he blew out his knee the year before, and he sat out the whole year before that. So
there you go.
So he came back and he looked good, but everybody's still worried about that knee. You know, it's one of those injuries.
Right.
But actually, the second year after the knee is when it should be okay. So they should be getting him fresh. But once again, he's a 7th round pick. That, you know, they don't have to play him. They could play him in the nickel, or maybe he's a special teams guy. Who knows?
Right. Or who knows? Maybe he even, you know, like, you know, you get him on, you know, the practice squad, and, you know, he gets called up a couple games, makes a play, you know, gets some time if some people get injured. But he's a guy that it wouldn't surprise me if he develops into a regular player, you know, a couple years down the road.
I think that'd be a big surprise, especially from a 7th round pick. But let's hope you're right, Mark. We'll take your optimism.
Yeah, let's see.
Well, he is the Grand Schwabini, and Daniel Rupert says the draft was excellent. DG is in the house, of course, always DG. And Pat on Track wants to remind us that we grade on a curve, Steve. I still don't.
That doesn't make any sense.
Everything he says. Mike Lawrence, hey Schwab, there's a rumor in Georgia that Kirby Smart may go to the Eagles. Any truth?
Sure, why not? Offensive coordinator, maybe?
Yeah.
No. Yeah, we're the bird dogs. The bird dogs now.
And Pat comes back with, can someone get Schwaber the she's out of my league bird backdrop? Or are there copyright issues? Yeah, that's a movie, Schwab.
I've seen that movie.
Yeah, I've seen that movie.
With the girl with the webbed feet.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know how that has anything to do with the Steelers draft, but that's Pat.
It doesn't.
Pat on track. Let's go.
Pat on track.
It doesn't. So I'm with you guys. I'm impressed that. We you know, first of all, I nailed last year's draft with the Kenny Pickett pick. And then I said they have to go get an offensive lineman, a tackle, and they get Broderick Jones. And they follow that up with the cornerback. And I know, you know, we've had this discussion over and over and over again. But the guy he's a talented player. Was he the right one to pick at that spot? I don't know. But, you know, they got him. But then following that up and getting a defensive lineman, a nose tackle, and Leal that they drafted last year, and then coming in after that and picking up that big tight end to play right alongside his buddy from Georgia. I mean, that definitely, to me, first of all, that was the Weidl effect. Okay, they're looking at the trenches just like he did with the Eagles, but they're doing it in a very smart way. And they're going all in for Kenny Pickett. They're putting him in a position. They're putting guys around him. When you take that Sayamalu signing from the Eagles, okay, and you throw him in as a starter on that line, and you bring Broderick Jones in, and you bring Darnell Washington in, now all of a sudden you've got the makings of, and not to take anything away from the guys that have been in the trenches the last 2 years, trying to put something together. They've got enough experience now. I think you've got the makings of a very good offensive line. And if that's the case, then this year we can grade that Kenny Pickett draft, because last year there was nothing to grade. The guy was running for his life and playing. And in my mind, even though I love the guy and wanted to see him in a Steelers uniform, last year was kind of like, welcome to the NFL. You know, this year, that line doing what they did, this is the year where it's, okay, now we get to see, are you going to be a quarterback? You know, in my mind, he's got a clean slate. So I like that draft from top to bottom for the Steelers. I think they're heading in the right direction. As for who makes the picks, I'm totally with Steve on the Tomlin definitely overruled everybody on that Joey Porter pick. I knew that was coming. We all knew that was coming. As soon as Porter fell and the first night of the draft was over, it was like, yep, I don't even have to watch tomorrow night. I know it's going to be Joey Porter Jr. You know, I mean, we knew that. As for the other picks, though,
saying we'll give you next year's 1 and this year's 2 and 3. They're like,
no, you got to take pieces, kid.
We're making the pick.
Yeah, too bad. Yeah, so as far as the other picks go, I don't think there's any one person. I think it's a collaboration completely, and because you see the draft rooms, there's 35 people in some of those draft rooms, and so they have their board up there, and then there's going to be somebody who makes the final call. Or maybe they get to a point where they're like, I don't know, it's between these two. Omar, what's your pick? Mm-hmm. But I think it's more of a collaboration.
What I think is just so funny is that however many picks there were, let's say there were like 260 or something, every single one, 30 people in every room are like, yeah, we got our guy.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's not like that. There are some other people who are like, no, that's the wrong pick. No, not that guy. No, not that guy.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just
I did love how the Bills jumped over the Cowboys to get that tight end.
Yeah, that was fun.
did love that. Yeah.
That was fun.
Yep. I can't stand the Cowboys any chance. You know what I mean? I will say that I think the Commanders had a horrible draft. They needed a corner. They needed a cornerback and somebody on the offensive line. They pulled a center in like the 3rd round. The corner they got, I think he's too skinny to play the game, to be honest with you. I mean,
he was rising on the board, so I don't know what that means, but
but I still think he was too skinny. But that's just me, and I'm too old and fat to play the game, so.
Well,
what am I going to say?
They're waiting on they need a new owner.
Yeah,
they do.
For sure.
So, but I think now what's left to be seen is when we get into camp. What's going to happen? How are they going to piece this all together? And we will have more for you on that. But
I don't think there are any contracts that they're going to be negotiating at this point. I don't know of anybody who needs to be signed like between now and the beginning of the season. Because, once the season starts, the Steelers don't negotiate contracts. So this would be the year if they want to keep somebody for next year. But I don't think there's anybody for next year that's like they got to get signed this year. We should check that out, though.
Yeah. Well, we'll leave that up to you.
Yeah, I don't think there is, because I had been looking and nobody's been talking about, well, they still have to make sure that they get, Deontay Johnson
So.
signed. Yeah, because they
Right.
signed him last year. I mean, maybe Pickens, but I mean, he's only in his second year, so
No.
he wouldn't be a guy, and so I can't think of anybody off the top of my head where they just haven't kept anybody for like 3 or 4 years. Najee maybe, but they're going to run him into the ground and then cut him loose. I mean, that's what everybody does now with running backs.
Yeah.
And if they want to, they can pick up the 5th-year option, and he's only in his 3rd year. So, next year they decide on the 5th-year option. So I don't see that as being a big deal. No, maybe next year, Najee, they might want to think about it if they want to keep him.
Yeah. Well, this is also going to be, going back to the line issue, this is going to be something that helps his game too. So we'll see. Maybe they can use him a little bit less if he's more effective per rush, because Broderick Jones is protecting Kenny Pickett's blind side and Sayamalu's opening up holes, and stuff like that. So I think there's good things in store. I definitely think they improved the outlook. You never know whether somebody's going to be a player or not until they get on the field, but the outlook is good. I don't think there's anything you can say about this draft right now that's bad. So, all right, moving on here. First, want to thank you guys and let you know that we drop the podcast after every show on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere you get your podcasts. And you can always hit us up online at theporcheslive.com, theporcheslive.com.
ThePorchesLive.com.
All right. I thought I caught you guys sleeping that time. And every Sunday at 4 p.m. on American Busker iHeartRadio. Thank you for tuning in. So the question right now I have for you guys is, are the Pirates for real? Are they for real?
No.
They're 20-9.
No.
No.
You don't think so?
No.
See, I happen to disagree.
No.
I disagree.
Well, define for real. What does for real mean? They're going to be a contender for the World Series. They're going to be a contender for the wild card spot. They're going to be a contender for 500. What does for real mean to you?
Not a minor league team.
Well, then they're for real, because they're not a minor league team. It's clear that they can beat the teams that suck. Like, they can beat Cincinnati. They suck, right? They can beat who else did they beat that sucks?
The Nationals.
The Nationals. They suck, right? So they can beat teams.
They did take
suck.
2 or 3 from the Dodgers, though.
Right. And the Dodgers right now are meh. They're a 500 team, right? So, I mean, but that being said, they're beating those teams, so they don't suck. So, I mean that's a positive for the Pirates. But here's the deal, we've been talking about this a lot. The Pirates have only played 18% of their games, okay? So, oh my God, Brad, if they,
I had to get that comment up there.
Brad,
100 win team.
If they win 100 games, I'm shaving my head. I'm shaving my head. I'm turning bald if they win 100 games.
Well,
first of all, they're not going to win 100 games because Nutting will sell half the team off before he lets that team win 100 games. Okay, let's just get that out there. But where I was going with my thoughts were they've played 18% of the games, and to put it into a Steeler perspective, that means that in Steeler language they would have played 3 games. So in Steeler language, that means the Steelers would be 3-0 right now, and they would have beaten the Browns, maybe the Chargers on the road, and say maybe the Eagles at home, and they're 3-0. Would we be saying the Steelers are going to the Super Bowl? No, we would not. We would say, okay, this team's pretty good. That's what we would be saying about the Pittsburgh Steelers. But instead, because the Pirates suddenly have the best record in the National League, now suddenly everybody loves the Pirates and they're the best team in the major leagues. Well, they're really not. They're really not. They're just playing well against bad teams because they've figured out to take advantage of the pitch clock. You can run. And when you can run, you can get into scoring position. And they're getting some time. They're getting some timely hitting now. Granted, and that's good. And they actually are a pretty good fielding team, and that's good. But I promise you, they will still be in contention for the wild card in July. The question is, what will Nutting do whenever they need to go out and get somebody? Like maybe there's an ace pitcher out there who can guarantee them another, 6 or 7 wins to make them in contention to take over the division against St. Louis or Milwaukee, right? Will he do it? I promise you he will not do it. If he does, that's when I'll jump on the bandwagon and say this team is for real. Because for me, for real means getting a wild card in the playoffs, not the play-in game. The play-in game is not a playoff spot. The play-in game gets you into the playoffs. I'm saying you actually get a wild card spot or a division contender. That's where I'm going to go with the Pirates.
Now let me give.
Hold on a second, Schwaber. Hold on
Yeah.
a second, Schwaber. I just want it to be known that I think everybody wants to see Steve bald, and we've also been able to get Steve to talk more about the Pirates just today than I think he has in grand total for the last 3 years. So give us your thoughts. Go ahead, Schwaber.
Well, baseball is a marathon and not a sprint. And so what happens is every team in the league has a really good stretch. Every team has a horrible stretch. And then there's a lot in the middle. And the good teams have a few of those really good stretches, right? And what happens is everything usually comes back down to earth. And I think what you're seeing right now is you're seeing some Pittsburgh Pirates throwing up starts to career years, okay? For example, does anybody actually think that Jason DeLay is a 390 hitter?
No.
Well, last year he hit 213, okay? I would say he's probably closer to going to end the season at 250 than 315.
274.
Yeah. If he's lucky, right?
Right.
And then what's Sawitsky, right?
Sawitsky.
Sawitsky. I actually really like him. I think maybe he might turn into something. He's got power.
Yes, he'll turn into a New York Yankee in next year.
However, is he a 280 hitter? Because last year he hit 202. So
I think last year was his rookie year.
And before the last couple days, he was hitting over 300. So the bottom line is, he's probably going to end up hitting 250. Like the bottom line is they're getting some great performances from people. Yeah. They're getting like, a 1 walk, 10 strikeout, pitching performances, which, look at the guy who pitched yesterday. He had some real nice pitching performances, and then he kind of turned back into sort of what he is yesterday. Right? So the bottom line is that, I think it's great that they've started well. It's great that they're not like a minor league baseball team, and look, I think what I've seen so far tells me, I think they got a shot to be right around 500. And I think that's really, really good. But, if you're looking at 20-9 and actually having hope of, playoffs, I think you're kidding yourself.
Playoffs? Yeah, I listen, this is something that I touched base about on the podcast last night. And with that, I want to remind everybody that we get the Buccos report. I give you your Buccos report after every game on the podcast on iHeart, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere you get your podcasts. But it's one of those things where starting off 20-9, the biggest point I think we made here that Steve made is the aggressive base running. I talk about this a lot. That pitch clock has definitely turned into something that if you're a smart manager, and I think Shelton is actually a smart manager, you get aggressive. And when you get aggressive, you create chaos. And when you create chaos, there's going to be a point at which the other team isn't sure what to do with you. And if you'd have told me this year that Santana would have 3 stolen bases already, Carlos Santana, Bay already has 11 stolen bases. The team has 41 stolen bases. that is definitely an advantage. And then turning that pitch clock around the other side, these younger pitchers that they have, the pitch clock forces them to focus on throwing strikes because they only have a set amount of time. So, Ray Miller said, work fast, throw strikes, change speed. That's the key to pitching. Okay. And these kids, they have to do that. There's some older pitchers having problems with that. So, I think, as a team, they're batting .264. They have a .343 on base percentage. I think that the real test of the early part of the season, and Pat put up a good comment here, the rule of 54, everyone wins 54, everyone loses 54. It's what you do with the other 54 that counts. I think that might be the first thing that Pat's ever said in reference to anything we talk about that I totally understand.
And it had everything to do with the topic at hand.
And it did. Congratulations, Pat. Welcome to the podcast.
Pat is on track.
but I think the real issue is coming up. They have 3 against Tampa Bay in Tampa Bay, 3 against Toronto. Okay, Tampa Bay arguably having the same kind of start to a season. And what are they going to do with these 6 games? Okay, Tampa Bay has a great pitching staff and they're hitting the cover off the ball. Toronto, they've got, their pitching is decent. Their hitting is outrageous. So this is the real test for the first part of the season. If they can come out of this 6-game set with these 2 teams, splitting it, okay, winning 3 and losing 3, then I'm going to be on that track of, okay, now they're putting something together. If they come out of it and let's say, they win 5 of 6, even that to me is kind of like, wow, they're kind of really playing above themselves, but it's good news. So that's the real test in the beginning part of the season, because I think you're right. The chance of them reversing to the mean it's high. And every time they lose a game now, even though it's only 1 loss, you're worried as a Pirates fan, like, oh, here we go. We lost the game. It's over, so that's always a possibility here. Let me get this comment in from the DG. They look like a real team. Remember last year when they were a laughingstock, chasing a base runner back from first towards home plate. And that's the thing that I think the McCutchen and the Santana aspect brings to the team is that, they're learning to win. They're learning to play professional baseball. And again, therein lies the problem. A professional baseball team shouldn't be learning to play professional baseball. They should already know how to play it. But when you bring that influence in, and then these guys learn how to win, they've got a formula right now. I don't think they should change anything. You're right. Oviedo looked horrible yesterday. But the important thing about yesterday's game was the bullpen came in and shut them down for the rest of the game. So now they did have a 7-run lead. So there was very little chance they were going to overcome that. But the bullpen came in and did their job anyway. They didn't let it blow up. And they had just dropped 23 runs on them the previous 2 games. Yeah. So do I think they're for real? I think there's a chance they're for real. And what does for real mean to me? It means finishing 500. That's what it means to me.
Yeah. I mean, I think we've –
anybody want to say anything?
I mean, the bottom line is I think we've seen this kind of thing happen a lot in baseball. It kind of reminds me of past couple years, like the Giants, San Francisco Giants get off to a really hot start,
right?
And then they're kind of in the wild card race till like mid-September, and then they kind of fall like 4 or 5 games out of the wild card race, and then by the time the season's over, it's like they're right around 500, and they miss the wild card by like 9 games.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But you can, I mean, one thing about baseball is like you can hang in it for a long time. Mm-hmm. And that's what the Pirates really have to be trying to do. They got to try to hang in it as long as they can.
Yeah, they got to get they got to be good through the summertime. until everybody goes back to school, and then nobody cares about baseball anymore because they got to get butts in the seats so that everybody can fill Nutting's wallet with more money. I mean, that's really the important thing for Pirates baseball.
Yeah, but it is big. Like if you think about it, these next 6 games are pretty big because, like if they go 4-2, let's say, in the next 6, I'm not saying that they're gonna still break 500, but it also probably means they'll be around for a while. Now, if they go like 1-5 in the next 6, then I think you could be looking at, okay, here we go.
Yeah, but summer's right around the corner, so that's all that really matters, And I was in Giant Eagle the other day, and what did I see? Pirates banners everywhere.
They do.
Yeah, they're trying to sell all the merch they can wherever they can put it. They're trying to take advantage of every aspect of this win streak. So
well, and that's why if they get to the point where they're getting close to the trade deadline, and the team is remotely in the hunt, first of all, you're going to have a lot more people buying products. Why would, Nutting wants to make money. We all know that. So why would he sell off the team and lose the fan base immediately? Because his revenue would go down. See, all they have to do is stay in the hunt, and Nutting will let them be relevant.
No, it's simple because he doesn't want to spend the extra 20, 30, 40 million dollars for that player. He would rather take your 10, 15 million dollars at as you go through the turnstile and as you buy the beer and as you get the Permane sandwiches. That's all he cares about. This is my problem with the Pirates. Like if he would pony up for that extra 30, 40 million and they would be at 100 million, actually think that baseball may have this right with not having the salary cap. And this is a different conversation for another day because this goes a little deep. But I actually think that maybe like if you spend 75 to 100 million, you can actually be relatively competitive in this game now. I don't think you need to spend like the Phillies are doing and like the Boston is doing, spending 250, 300 million. I don't think you need to spend that much money to get a winner. I think you can get a winner now with like 100 million. And the Pirates the problem is they're only at like 40 or 50, maybe 60 million, right? So they need to pony up a little bit more just to get in that relevancy. I mean, that's kind of where the St. Louis Cardinals live, and they've lived in that land for such a long time. They're very good at it, and they're very competitive. That's the only difference that I see between, being at that high level, which I'm not asking them to spend, all their capital and all their profit on a product that will get them to the playoffs and will make it exciting. I'm not asking him to do that. I'm just asking him to take, $40 million out of his pocket that he's already getting from Major League Baseball and put it on the field. That's all I'm asking. I don't think it's cynical. I don't think it's crazy. I think it would make more people come to the game and realize that this guy does want to put a winner, but he's never done it. He's done it once, and then he took that away the next year after they won their 100 games. So, and by the way, regarding the 100 games, Brad said, something about, pay for my Steeler tickets or something like that. Brad, I'll make you a deal. If the Steelers win 100 games, I will go to the football game and I will buy all the beer you want for as long as you want to be there. That's my deal.
And you said if the Steelers win 100 games, we know you meant the Pirates.
Oh, well, the Steelers will win 100 games before the Pirates this year. Yeah.
Well, I just want to know who wants to see Steve bald. If you want to see Steve bald or you want him to buy Brad's beer, which one would you buy? I love you, Brad, but I think I'd like to see Steve without any hair.
I'll do both. I'll still shave my head.
And you're up in the ante now.
And I will serve Brad beer because he's the one who brought it up. So he's got to get something out of it, right?
Yeah. And my buddy from York, the only Expos fan alive on the planet, he says they used to compete with a $30 million a year salary cap.
1976.
Well, hey, 30 million in 1980 was like 150 million now.
I think Tim Raines got like 2.5 million of that 30 million, by the way.
Yep. And
You know
DG says, go ahead, buddy. Go ahead.
Tim Raines started to slide head first because he didn't want to mess up the cocaine in his back pocket. I heard that the other day. Yeah, I heard that story the other day.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, and he should be in the Hall of Fame, though, right? He should be in the Hall of Fame, right, Schwaber?
They all should be in the Hall of Fame.
Right.
Is he? I think he is in the Hall of Fame, isn't he?
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, he's probably in the Hall of Fame.
Even though he ran the base pass with cocaine in his back pocket. I mean, you don't think that was helping him?
It made him innovative on the base pass.
Think about how hard it would have been to actually see where the base was.
Yeah, obviously you know something about coke that I know. Yeah.
Why do you think he dove into that white base nose first?
Right.
All right. That's enough. Okay. Well, listen, I want to thank everybody if they're listening to us. If you're watching us on live, or if you're watching us live on social media, thank you for that. Of course, we come across all social media platforms. If you're listening to us on the podcast, or you missed part of this, we drop the podcast right after the show on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere you get your podcasts. And you can catch up with a rebroadcast of this on the iHeartRadio app on American Busker iHeartRadio every Sunday at 4 p.m. And you can always catch us on theporcheslive.com, theporcheslive.com. I'll say it, theporcheslive.com. And let's move on here because I know Hockey Jesus. Well, actually, I want to remind everybody that I do your Buccos report after every Buccos game on the podcast, so you can catch that. And let's move on here. DG says Hockey Jesus did say the Rangers Devils would be tough to pick. Any last minute thoughts? What's going on, Hockey Jesus?
Well, it is a big Game 7 in New Jersey tonight, and so I can't go away from my pick. I can't go away from my pick. You know, I did say that the Rangers would win it in 7 games, but I did say that, I thought that the Rangers would be tougher. So I'm surprised that they haven't played a very tough game. They've let New Jersey skate around way too much, and I still think that the Rangers win this game, unfortunately, but I'm rooting very hard for the Devils. Look, the one thing about these playoffs, everybody knows that Seattle's out and Colorado's also out for the 10 people that watch hockey. By the way, I saw something crazy. Like the Stanley Cup Finals only gets 4 million viewers or something like that. And the NFL Draft had 34 million viewers. The draft.
That's why we lead with football.
I mean, that's just crazy. But, I mean, I get it. So hockey's a niche sport, but it's so much fun to watch. Seattle and Colorado are out. I did get those wrong. I think everybody predicting games pretty much got those wrong unless you were taking the underdogs in all the other games. In that case, you only got 2 right. So,
well, I think not many of us followed the Kraken this year.
Yeah, so the Kraken are a really interesting game. I'm going to cover the Kraken in my preview, which actually the preview of the Seattle Dallas and the Florida Toronto series I'm going to be going live with tonight. So look for that tonight. I'll do Carolina and whoever wins tonight's game and the Vegas Edmonton tomorrow. That way I'll have it before the game starts, so you'll know my predictions. The thing about this playoffs is it's all about youth. Experience means nothing. The Boston Bruins won the record amount of games ever in NHL, and it didn't mean anything in a Game 7. Why? Because they're too old and they're too slow. They had a rookie coach. They didn't know how to coach a Game 7, and that's all that matters when you play against a hot guy like Carter.
Why did he not play their number 1 goalie?
So as it turns out, Ullman was playing the whole series injured.
Oh, okay.
And he said he was okay, but everybody knew he had this injury. Nobody's disclosing the injury. But I guess it got so bad in Game 7 that he couldn't play. So that's just bad coaching. Like a coach will say, look, we have 2 really good goalies. Swayman's a good goalie. Like there's no reason why he couldn't have played Game 6 and then played Game 7. That way, at least he would have been in there, for a game 6, a game they didn't have to win. A game 7, you have to win, and you're putting in the goalie for the first time. Just a bad idea. So I think that's the lesson that I'm learning, that it doesn't matter age, it matters speed. And it matters that you have a coach that understands your players. And I think Florida's got it going on now. When they won that game, it was game 5 in overtime. That was a big deal. They stole that game from Boston. Boston really should have won that game, and that's what really turned it for Florida. And Boston had the lead once again in game 6 in the third period. It really reminded me. I felt like I was watching the Penguins play. Because the Penguins lost so many games in the third period. I was like, how can Boston turn into the Pittsburgh Penguins? And it suddenly struck me. They're old. They got slow. These young kids are just skating circles around them, and they have to win the game. Like in a playoff game, you win or you're out. So they just knew how to do it. So it's good fun. It's going to be really interesting. I mean, everybody's kind of predicting an Edmonton-Toronto finals now. I wouldn't go so quickly as to do that. There's some really interesting matchups. And by the way, everybody should have seen that Seattle had a chance against Colorado. Colorado had Landeskog, their captain, out the whole time. Nestrushkin, who supposedly has some kind of problems with alcohol, I think, is why he got kicked off the team. And then they ended up losing Cogliano in the 7th game because of a hit from somebody from the other team. He actually broke a vertebrae in his neck on the hit, and the guy didn't even get a penalty. So once again, it's the NHL not being able to take care of bad situations on the ice. It's just terrible. But look, if New Jersey scores first tonight, they're going to win. If it comes down to the first goal, whoever scores the first goal wins 70% of these game 7s. And right now it's 0-0. So it's still anybody's game tonight. So look for the Hockey Jesus tonight. I'm doing 2 of the games. I'm going to do a West Coast and an East Coast game because that's the way they're going to do it tomorrow. So those will be the Tuesday games. And then on the Wednesday games, I'll be doing that Tuesday night. So I'm ahead of the curve.
There we go.
Hockey
there we go.
Jesus.
There. There it is. All right. Well, listen up, guys. Stay tuned on the Sports Porch for the Buccos report and Hockey Jesus. We drop it after every Buccos game, and Hockey Jesus is following the NHL playoffs. Anything else you guys want to throw in here before we sign off? Did I miss anything? I'm kind of lightheaded down here smoking this cigar in Grand Cayman. So,
well, you had a beautiful sunset we could see. So thanks for sharing that.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. All right, guys. Listen, thanks for listening to us. Thanks for watching. Catch the Sports Porch podcast. Please subscribe, follow, leave us a review on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere you get your podcasts. You can hear us on American Busker, iHeartRadio every Sunday. I didn't even know the music was playing. See, and the song is over. I did this on the Philly Sports Porch earlier. We're
do it again. We love this song.
Here it comes. Here it
I
comes.
don't know that. I don't know
Banana
that.
song.
I don't know the technical director should really be your name.
Yeah, I think you're right. I'm not in the studio. Go. Let's get these last couple comments in here. DG, thanks. Safe travels home, Chris. Thank you, DG. Jeff, my boy from York. Thank you, buddy. Appreciate you being here. And that is it for the Sports Porch. We are out of here. We will see you next week.